Central Minnesota Sports Hub. It's the Morning Sports Desk, presented by Wadena's Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade. Available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, and streaming on YouTube.
Powered by Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade in Wadena, this is the Morning Sports Desk. I'm CJ Baumgartner. Lots of great vibes on the local sports scene. The state sports, they exist. Not quite sure how great they are, but we're going to talk about our local broadcast schedule, which is back for the winter sports season. We're getting things going on Saturday with coverage of the Denny Kotz Memorial Wrestling Tournament in Wadena. We got finals coverage with Kyle Gelsine and Dan Lawson on the call once again, doing a great job as always. I'll say it once, I'll say it again. Nobody does a better job of covering wrestling in Minnesota than Kyle and Dan. In central Minnesota, in our area, nobody does a better job getting coverage on the air than those two gentlemen right there. They do a great job as always. They're back for another winter of calling wrestling, and yeah, just going to be a great one. So keep in mind with that coming up on Saturday. But I do want to take a moment to talk about some of the other highlights of the 2025-26 winter sports broadcast schedule on our Hubbard Radio Wadena stations. That includes the Superstation K106, 105.9 FM, and of course 101.7 FM, AM 920, KWAD, and 98.5 FM and AM 1430, KNSP The Fan, and of course WadenaRadio.com, WadenaRadio.com/KWAD, places to listen audio online. And we are going to dip our toes into video streaming as well. You can listen to and watch our games, our coverage at WadenaRadio.com. You can find our broadcast schedule there, but you can watch on our Hubbard Radio YouTube page, which, of course, if you're watching the Morning Sports Desk on that, you don't even have to go anywhere, which is why you should, subscribe, hit the little bell to know when we're going on. That way you can see our games that we have coming up. But the more important thing to say is we will have games on not just our airwaves, but also online with video when you follow Hubbard Radio Wadena on Facebook. So a lot of, on YouTube, excuse me. So a lot of great things happening that I'm just really, really excited about, not only because we are going to be dipping our toes into video, but there's just so many great opportunities that we have to broadcast. And it's really exciting. All of the things that we get to put on the air, because we love going to games. Me, Corey, Kyle, Zeke, Tyler Grunwald, who's going to be here. Of course, you have Jamie Pettit, who's going to be doing a great job covering Wadena Deer Creek hockey once again. There's just a lot of great things that are happening. And I just want to take a moment to talk about them, because we love giving a platform to the local athletes and teams and communities in our area. It's just awesome getting to be that. I know growing up, before I was a high school athlete, having my high school's games at Bertha Hewitt on the air was always awesome. And then when I played, it was cool to be on the radio. There was just a special gravitas when you felt like, hey, this game's going to be on the radio. People are going to be hearing about this game, not just who are here and talking about it, but all across the listening area. And it's just great. And we don't take that opportunity lightly to get to put a spotlight on these communities, on these coaches, and most importantly, on these kids. So it's just really awesome to get to do that. I preface all of that by saying we are going to have a great winter sports broadcast season coming up on our Hubbard Radio Wadena stations. Let's take a look at some of the highlights. If you want to look at the full broadcast schedule, just find it online at WadenaRadio.com or by following Sports Cow on Facebook. Can I get a moo? And if somebody was here, they'd go moo, and we'd move on. But anyway, just looking at this whole list of games going on, I want to pull attention to, of course, the Denny Kotz tournament, which is coming up Saturday, December 6th. And then the next Saturday, we have a huge coverage. But first, Thursday, December 11th, our first WDC hockey coverage of the year is the Highway 71 Cup between Park Rapids area and Wadena Deer Creek on KWAD, 5:40 pregame, 6 o'clock puck drop with Jamie and Jamie on the call, along with Scott Woods, which is going to be great. And then on Saturday, December 13th, the Park Region Conference Girls Basketball Showcase is back. It's going to be in Sabika this year, and I believe it's the first year since 2020 that they've been able to put this on. And I love the idea of the Park Region Conference Showcase for a multitude of reasons, but the one of which is just a celebration of area basketball. And for girls basketball, have some great matchups. We have Henning at Sabika, Monaga versus Verndale, Wadena Deer Creek versus Bertha Hewitt, New York Mills versus Pillager. A lot of great matchups that are going to happen all throughout the night. And it's a chance not just for me to get to see all these Park Region Conference teams, but for everybody else to get to see them as well. And for our listeners to get to hear it. It's going to be all day coverage starting at 10:45 in the morning, lasting until the game that tips off, scheduled to tip off at 5 o'clock that night from Sabika. We are going to have back-to-back coverage all day long on 101.7 FM and AM 920 KWAD and online at wadenaradio.com/KWAD. And of course, on our Hubbard Radio-Wadena YouTube page as well for all the coverage from Sabika for the Park Region Conference Girls Basketball Showcase. I am so looking forward to that. I have not gotten a chance to broadcast a Girls Basketball Showcase yet, and I'm really looking forward to that opportunity coming up next Saturday. Some other things to take a look at on the broadcast schedule. There is just a really, really cool opportunity for a matinee wrestling duel between New York Mills and Wadena Deer Creek on Thursday, December 18th, 1:15 pregame, 1:30 p.m. match start. And of course, the whole Wadena Deer Creek student body is going to be present for this one. It's going to be a rocking environment. They've done it with girls basketball and boys basketball and volleyball and some of the other sports as well, to try and get the whole student body to be able to enjoy some of these matchups. And just really, really cool that they're going to be able to do that once again for the wrestling team. And I know Coach Wallum with Wadena Deer Creek is really excited about this opportunity. So it's going to be really fun. It's going to be a really fun day of wrestling at Wadena Deer Creek as well. And of course, a doubleheader in boys and girls basketball, Verndale at Pillager later that night on the Superstation K106. Coming up in the new year, we have a couple dates to remember on the schedule. First, coming up in January is going to be a wrestling quad like none other that we've done before on our Hubbard Radio-Wadena stations. 4:15 pregame, 4:30 match start for a girls wrestling quad between Bemidji, Bertha Hewitt, Verndale, Parkers Prairie, Wadena Deer Creek, and Staples Motley from the Nest in Staples. Kyle and Dan on the call, and Wadena Deer Creek, Bertha Hewitt, Verndale, Parkers Prairie, Bemidji, and Staples Motley have all been known to have some great girls wrestlers come through in the very infancy of sanctioned girls wrestling in Minnesota. And they've had state champions with some of these programs, state participants, but not always big enough for a team quite yet. And now all of these four teams not only able to get some girls wrestlers and have success, but also now get to have them as a team in what will be one of the first ever marquee girls wrestling team matchups ever in Minnesota. And we are going to cover it on the Superstation K106, 105.9 FM, online at wadenaradio.com, Superstation K106 mobile app, and of course covered on the Hubbard Radio-Wadena YouTube page. This is going to be awesome, breaking barriers, first ever trailblazing kind of broadcast. It's just really cool. I'm so excited for that. So again, that's just another thing to keep in mind. And coming up in February, Monday, February 2nd, Wadena Deer Creek at New York Mills for the Highway 10 Cup Challenge. It's been a couple years now that Wadena Deer Creek and New York Mills have done a traveling trophy called the Highway 10 Cup. And what they do is they have the junior high, some elementary, and then of course JV varsity play each other, and they keep track of who wins and points scored and a couple other key statistics. And what they do is they basically compile it all, and the winner of the most games gets to take home the Highway 10 Cup. I believe New York Mills has had it for a year. I believe Wadena Deer Creek has had it for a year. And so we get to just we're going to do some really special things. What all is going to take place, we're still kind of in the works. Don't quite want to announce that yet, but we will have coverage of the Highway 10 Cup Challenge, not just for varsity. We're planning on doing some things from the lowest level on up, and it's just going to be a really cool broadcast experience that we are really looking forward to covering here on our Hubbard Radio-Wadena stations. That's going to be on KWAD 101.7 FM, AM 920, and online at wadenaradio.com or wadenaradio.com/KWAD or our Hubbard Radio-Wadena YouTube page. It's going to be so awesome. I am so looking forward for this opportunity. There's just so much great stuff. And of course, the games we do every single week, whether it's Staples Motley Wrestling, which is back on the schedule, defending Class A state champions, or just, Henning boys basketball is making a couple appearances on here, defending Section 6A champions. Monaga girls basketball, strong as always. Wadena Deer Creek girls basketball in the mix. There's so many different things that we are going to be covering on our broadcast schedule, and it's just so awesome. You can find the full thing online at WadenaRadio.com. Go check it out. But that is the kind of just brief overview of some things to look forward to throughout the broadcast schedule. I'm just so excited, man. I'm so excited. We haven't had a chance to call games in over a month, and I am just itching. It's been a month to the day that I have called a game, and I'm looking forward to get back in the saddle next week and be calling some games. So this is awesome. Let's do this thing. And we're going to talk state sports and kill the vibe here in just a second. Breaking a Vikings disaster. Timberwolves get a win, so at least that's good. On Adam Thielen getting cut, which just compiling disaster. But it's never a disaster. When you go to the Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade in Wadena, they have a Cyber Monday deal today where FunZone rewards members get a $10 free credit with online FunZone purchases of $50 or more. Qualifying purchases must be added to a new or existing FunZone card registered with your FunZone Rewards account to be eligible. And if you're not a FunZone Rewards member, it's not too late. There is a QR code that if you're watching on YouTube, you can scan, or go to the Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade in Wadena's Facebook page and scan that QR code, and you can join FunZone Rewards today. Then make qualifying online purchases on your FunZone Rewards account to claim the Cyber Monday deal. This is today and today only. Buy $50 worth of FunZone credit, get $10 free. Earn $10 for every $50 spent on your FunZone card purchases, only at the Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade in Wadena. And when you're done getting that credit, go there, go enjoy Half Price Play Mondays as well. And don't forget to have the country's best chicken, the great pizza, the great mashed potatoes, awesome salad bar. There's pizza, there's dessert pizza, there's cookies, there's ice cream, just everything you need to enjoy yourself. Look, Minnesota sports, looking at the Vikings, looking at the Twins, looking at the Wolves, things aren't going great, but they're always great. It's always a great time at the Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade. There are big TVs to watch the games, and if they're not doing well, there's plenty of other games going on that you can watch instead at the Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade in Wadena, or just go play games at the FunZone Arcade. Plenty that you can do at the Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade in Wadena. Go check them out with the great Cyber Monday deal. Okay, so Minnesota Vikings, things are not going great at all, man. The Minnesota Vikings are breaking records, and in the worst way, as if things could not get any worse, with the Vikings 4-7 record going into yesterday's game against Seattle, against old friend Sam Darnold, who has the Seahawks at 9-3 at this point in the year after a 26-0 shutout victory, where the defense actually played pretty well, all things considered, only allowed one touchdown. But the Vikings turned the ball over 4 times, including a brutal pick six on a 4th and 1. Look, I don't need to rehash the game. It was awful in every way imaginable and then some, but I just want a couple key stats and a couple key things to point out. I like Max Brosmer. I think he could be a nice developmental backup QB, and I've said that through training camp. I've said that all season long. In no way was I ever calling for Max Brosmer to start a game for the Minnesota Vikings, or even to come in, because it would probably have looked like that. Now, I understand he's on the road, doesn't have the entire left side of his offensive line. That's one of the best defenses in the NFL. It's not a great spot to be put in. But there were a lot of people claiming that Max Brosmer was purple Purdy. There were a lot of people claiming that the Vikings didn't want to play Max Brosmer against the Chargers on that Thursday night game where Carson Wentz was basically sent out to die because they didn't want Max Brosmer to upstage J.J. McCarthy. And I like Max Brosmer, okay? I'm not trying to rag on the guy. He did his best with what he could do in a bad situation. My expectations for Max Brosmer were not that high, so I'm disappointed, but I can't say that like I was expecting him to come in and light the world on fire. I was expecting disaster because things can always get worse. But for all of you who are talking about how he's purple Purdy, the Vikings should play Brosmer, they have a diamond in the rough, he's better than McCarthy. He's clearly not better than McCarthy. There are things he could do better than McCarthy, but McCarthy had the better arm talent. You could see that on a couple interceptions, but Max Brosmer threw 4 interceptions. J.J. McCarthy's thrown a bunch of interceptions. The Vikings, and from the quarterback position, have turned the ball over more than anyone in the NFL. Max Brosmer went 126 yards, no touchdowns, 4 interceptions, a QB rating of under 36. For those of you who don't know what QBR is, if you would have thrown the ball into the turf every single play, he would have a QBR of like 39, which just, he did worse than just throwing the ball out of bounds every single play. But that stat line of 126 yards through the air, no touchdowns, 4 interceptions, it's actually been done before. That stat line happened one time before by a quarterback named Tommy Thompson on November 5th of 1950. But it's important to remember with Tommy Thompson, and this comes courtesy of the QB Gami account on Twitter. Tommy Thompson was blind in one eye and stepped away from the NFL to serve for 2 years during World War II. So the only QB performance that is on the level with what Max Brosmer put out there yesterday was a quarterback who was blinded serving his country in World War II. How did this happen? Oh, but it gets worse from there. Or at least it doesn't get much better from there. Max Brosmer is the first quarterback to throw 4+ interceptions in his first career start since Nathan Peterman in 2017, the infamous Nate Peterman game where he threw interception after interception after interception. You are in Nate Peterman territory. And again, I don't mean this as any ill will against Max Brosmer. I like Max Brosmer as a developmental backup quarterback, but that means he wasn't supposed to play this year. He was just supposed to soak in the playbook, slowly get better, and see what could happen. He was thrown into a bad situation. I'm not saying he wasn't. But for those of you who thought that he was going to be this franchise savior, this gives off massive Jaron Hall vibes from 2023. Remember, Nick Mullins can't do it. Josh Dobbs can't do it. Bring in Jaron Hall. He's a 5th-round pick. He's awesome. He had 2 highlights in the preseason. Bring in the rookie. Let's see what the kid can do. He can't possibly be worse. And he was worse than Nick Mullins and Josh Dobbs. He can't be worse than J.J. McCarthy, Max Brosmer can't. And yet he was. Quit saying it can't be any worse because the Vikings are finding ways to get worse. If you look at EPA per play, which is an advanced statistic, Max Brosmer and J.J. McCarthy are 2 of the bottom QBs in the league. And since EPA per play was tracked, some of the worst quarterback play we've ever seen. And the worst part is it's sinking a Vikings team that actually does look kind of good. The defense was giving Sam Darnold fits yesterday. Dallas Turner looking like a really nice defensive edge rusher over the last month, been putting in some really nice games. The secondary got interceptions. There was things to be had for the defense. We've seen special teams make some blunders, and they made another one yesterday with a holding penalty, but Miles Price is a nice kick returner. Will Reichard might be the best kicker in all of football. And yet we can't enjoy any of that because this offense has been so bad. And yes, there have been injuries on the offensive line. Ryan Kelly went out. Donovan Jackson was out. Christian Darrisaw was out. You had 3 of your 5 offensive linemen that weren't in the game by the end of it. I understand that. That's all well and good. But it's the NFL, man. You're not going to have perfect offensive line play every single time. That was what Kirk Cousins had to deal with all the time. Sam Darnold had to deal with offensive line play that was bad last year, and we all raked him over the coals for it. And again, I'm not saying Sam Darnold is on the same level as J.J. McCarthy, because Sam Darnold is clearly better. There were a lot of, and I'm not saying it's anybody who listens to this program, so I'm not calling out anybody who's listening here. I'm not calling you out specifically, but there were people on social media who were claiming that J.J. McCarthy was going to produce just as well as Sam Darnold did, who threw 30 touchdowns to like 13 interceptions last year. A great season by Sam Darnold. One of the best quarterback seasons in the history of the Minnesota Vikings franchise. And you thought a 22-year-old rookie with no throws, no development time, coming off a meniscus injury was going to step in and play that well? Who thought that? And if you genuinely thought that, you got to reprioritize how you think about football, because that just wasn't going to happen. And there's a lot of questions about KOC. There's a lot of questions about Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah. There's a lot of questions about how this quarterback process, about how this thought process went into letting Sam Darnold go. The Vikings had a report. I mean, Tom Pelissero and Ian Rappaport put it out there of NFL Network, but the Vikings clearly put this out there. Like, the Vikings offered a similar contract to Sam Darnold than what the Seahawks gave, but basically Sam Darnold took the Seahawks offer. So the Vikings tried. But my guy, you had the franchise tag, which would have forced him to be here for 1 year. And in hindsight, you should have did it. And you should have let J.J. McCarthy develop another year and see if that would have done him well, because McCarthy clearly isn't ready. He clearly needed more time to develop from behind the scenes that he didn't get because he was hurt last year. That's not his fault. That's just, it happens. But clearly needed that extra year. And the Vikings thought they They overcompensated on their ability to evaluate the quarterback position and their ability to set up an infrastructure around him, because even that, this is a really nice football team around him that is sinking because of really, really bad quarterback play from him, from Max Brosmer. My goodness, I am yearning for quarterback play by Carson Wentz. That's where we're at this point in the year. How good does that feel? All to wrap this up and to say the Vikings have questions, and it just starts from bad quarterback play. And for all of you who thought that, and again, not you listening, but just you generally, for thought that Sam Darnold was weighing this team down. And look, in a vacuum, it made sense. And I'm not even saying I disagreed with letting Darnold go at the time, because I trusted Kevin O'Connell's ability to evaluate the quarterback position and to build the roster around him. And Sam Darnold had 2 bad games to end the year, and that clearly weighed in the minds of fans and the team and things like that. But, I certainly would have been okay at the time if the Vikings would have kept Darnold. You can go back on this program and listen to me and Corey talk about it. I was not like pounding the table saying Sam Darnold needs to come back. But I certainly wasn't a person who was like, under no circumstances can he come back. And there was a lot of people saying that, and a lot of people overhyping McCarthy. And those same people, by the way, overhyped Brosmer. Have realistic expectations for quarterback play from young quarterbacks. Have them. Assume they're bad until proven otherwise. You kind of have to. You can't just assume they're going to come in and be great. It takes time. And the Vikings are going to be fishing for quarterback play. That's a quarterback conversation for next year and things like that. We're not talking about on this show. We do, though, need to talk about with quarterback play how much it has impacted the wide receiver position, because Jordan Addison dropping footballs, so that doesn't help either. Justin Jefferson dropped a ball. I know it wasn't a great pass. Still expect Jefferson to catch it. Not great. Not a great time all around. Justin Jefferson didn't talk to the media yesterday, so that's great. Jordan Addison's dropping passes, so that's great. And Adam Thielen was a healthy scratch for the first time this season. Clearly not sitting well with Adam Thielen, who asked for his release, and the team granted it to him today. Adam Thielen has been cut by the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings make that announcement earlier today, and just looking at this announcement from Thielen from the Vikings, here's what Adam Thielen, he says, this is a tremendously difficult decision for me to write, and certainly not how any of us imagined this would go. And he talked about since the spring, he knew this was going to be his last season playing in the National Football League. And since basically the Vikings were basically going to healthy scratch him, he's like, hey, if you're going to not play me, if I'm not even going to get on the field, then just cut me so that way I can go play for a team that maybe would play me. It's my last year in the NFL. I want a chance to go to the playoffs and see how far I can go. Will you allow me to do that? And the Vikings said yes. And Adam Thielen said, hey, I'm going to come back and retire this spring. I love the Vikings organization, but just it's a very professional business-like decision. If I have no future here this year, which is my last year, then just let me go see if the Los Angeles Rams, let me go see if the New England Patriots, let me go see if some team with playoff aspirations would just want me to be on their roster and help out and see what I could do. Maybe a reunion with the Carolina Panthers, where the Vikings overpaid to get Adam Thielen. And again, at the time, we were all clamoring for it, and we thought it was a good decision at the time. It's, again, indecision to make sense. In hindsight, we all look like fools, right? I'm not going to say I thought the Thielen trade was a disaster, but the Vikings certainly did overpay. And I think we all knew that at the time. The Vikings traded a 5th-round draft pick and a 2027 4th-round pick, a 2027 5th-round pick, and a conditional 2027 7th-round pick to the Carolina Panthers for Thielen. And, of course, Jalen Naylor was hurt. The Vikings had Addison, who was going to be out. The Vikings needed somebody who could step in, and they thought Adam Thielen could do it. By the time week 1 rolled around, Naylor's injury wasn't so bad, and he was able to play. But again, with such bad quarterback play, he wasn't able to get the ball. He had 8 catches for like 70 yards, no touchdowns, 1 2-point conversion on week 1. That was it. I can't blame Thielen. I can't be mad at him. He made a business decision. The Vikings made it first. It's not like he was demanding it before. And if he was, it wasn't loud. But after the Vikings decide to healthy scratch him, it's like, well, what are you going to do? Can't blame the Vikings for healthy scratching him. Really? I mean, he wasn't seeing the field that much. This whole thing just gives vibes of the 2010 season. Remember 2010? The Vikings came in off double-digit wins, big playoff appearance. I know the Vikings won a playoff game in 2009, 2010 season, which they clearly didn't do in any of KOC's playoff attempts in 2022 or 2024. But the Vikings came in off a huge season, big expectations, bringing back basically the same roster, and they failed. They just failed right out of the gate. They sputtered and were never able to get momentum, and things fell apart. And the Vikings, of course, bringing back, now it was midseason they brought back Randy Moss, but the Vikings brought back a franchise-beloved wide receiver in Adam Thielen, just like Randy Moss came in and felt like this is going to give the offense a spark, and never did. And not only that, Randy Moss never finished the season with the Minnesota Vikings. Now, Moss was here for a lot less than what Thielen was here, and Moss was a headache, and in no way am I saying Thielen was a headache, but you had a wide receiver come in who had history with the team, beloved, felt like he was going to come back and help things out, never did, and then left before the season ended because things had gone off the rails so much. Quarterback gets injured midway through the year. Of course, it was Favre coming in. Favre's play dropped off tremendously. J.J. McCarthy's play dropped off tremendous. You can't even say it dropped off. It just never took off. It crashed on impact. And then you had backup quarterbacks coming in. Of course, Joe Webb at least gave the Vikings something, right? Like, at least he gave us a Monday night victory over Michael Vick where he did stuff. At least you could say that. I mean, I want to compare the Joe Webb situation because Joe Webb was behind Ponder, and the fan base wanted a Webb over Ponder, where the fan base was calling for Brosmer. But at least Webb came in and played a little good. At least he had some games where he looked competent as a quarterback. The dude outdueled Michael Vick in Philadelphia. At least he could do that. Brosmer crumbled on impact. So I don't know. My point is, if the roof collapses at US Bank Stadium, I am done with this franchise. All right, let's talk about the Minnesota Timberwolves. They get a victory over the franchise known as the Boston Celtics on Saturday. They also get a win over the Wemby-less San Antonio Spurs. The Vikings get back-to-back wins over winning teams. The Vikings, up until Saturday, did not have a win against a team with a record better than 500, and they got two of them now. Let's go! Wolves back. We the ones, Jack. Just a couple big victories for the Minnesota Timberwolves. And looking at the Wolves' schedule now, they are off tonight. They have a game on Tuesday and Thursday, both in New Orleans, both against the Pelicans. And then they take on the Clippers, Suns, Warriors, Kings coming up as well throughout the month of December. But an opportunity for the Wolves to pick up a couple wins against some struggling Pelicans team. And then the schedule gets a little tougher with Clippers, Suns, Warriors coming up. But an opportunity in December for the Wolves. Then they play the Kings and the Grizzlies, the Thunder, the Bucks, the Knicks, the Nuggets on Christmas, the Nets, the Bulls, the Hawks, all throughout the month of December. But back-to-back 30-plus games for Anthony Edwards. Of course, these are games with winning teams. These are games he's motivated to play well against. But Anthony Edwards coming up in a couple big games with the Wolves and needed him to get some wins and to help things out. And not only that, helping the Wolves out in the standings right now. Again, it's pre-Christmas standings, so who really cares? But the Wolves are 12-8 currently and the 6th seed in the NBA in the Western Conference. All right. That's going to wrap things up. Morning Sports Desk powered by Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade in Wadena.
Central Minnesota Sports Hub. It's the Morning Sports Desk, presented by Wadena's Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade. Available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, and streaming on YouTube.